Today, the Middle East stands at the center of one of the most consequential and volatile geopolitical crises in recent history, with an intense confrontation underway between Iran, the United States, and Israel that has now entered its fourth week, marked by sustained military operations, diplomatic strain, and far-reaching global impacts. The conflict began after coordinated U.S. and Israeli airstrikes struck key Iranian military targets, including strategic facilities, prompting Iran to retaliate with a series of missiles, drones, and strikes on U.S., allied, and regional infrastructure, and these hostilities have spread across multiple countries including Kuwait and Bahrain, where missiles and drones have struck military installations and caused civilian casualties, contributing to general instability across the Gulf region. One of the most critical flashpoints remains the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow maritime choke point through which roughly one-fifth of the world's oil and gas supply normally flows. Iran's restrictions on vessel passage, only allowing traffic it classifies as neutral, and its repeated attacks on merchant ships have effectively halted most commercial traffic, threatening global energy security and sending oil prices sharply higher while forcing shipping companies to reroute or suspend operations in one of the world's busiest trade corridors. The United States has responded with increased military activity to try to reopen the strait, including an ongoing aerial campaign against Iranian naval vessels and drones in the area. And the U.S. president has issued a stark ultimatum giving Iran 48 hours to fully restore safe passage or face further strikes on its energy infrastructure. A move that has both intensified tensions and drawn widespread international attention. Across the region, diplomatic and economic repercussions are accelerating. Global leaders, including those in the United Nations and key world powers, are urgently trying to mediate and prevent broader escalation, while 32 countries in West Asia and beyond are seeking emergency solutions amid travel advisories, disrupted trade, and rising costs for fuel and commodities. These developments are triggering major energy market volatility, with oil prices surging well above $100 a barrel, insurance costs spiking for ships, and freight charges rising sharply, all contributing to inflationary pressures and economic uncertainty worldwide as nations assess the risk of supply disruptions that could impact industries from transportation to agriculture. At the same time, humanitarian concerns are growing, as civilians across affected areas face displacement, casualties, and infrastructure damage, and key medical and food supply chains remain at risk due to disrupted air, sea, and land routes. Millions of people in Lebanon, Iran, Iraq, and other parts of the region are experiencing the direct human cost of conflict, and international aid organizations warn that conditions could worsen if hostilities continue. In addition, airlines, supply networks, and global markets are grappling with unprecedented losses and operational challenges, with losses described as the worst since the COVID-19 pandemic and stock markets dipping in response to geopolitical uncertainty, while governments and economic entities reassess energy strategies and push for alternative sources and increased investment in renewable energy to reduce the global economy's vulnerability to instability in this strategically vital region. Collectively, these events paint a picture of a Middle East in profound turmoil that is not only reshaping security dynamics within the region but also producing shockwaves across continents, influencing global policy, trade, humanitarian efforts, and the daily lives of billions around the world as tensions continued to escalate. High-level discussions among the United Nations Security Council grew increasingly urgent, with diplomats striving to broker a ceasefire before the situation worsened. Nations began to position themselves strategically, weighing their alliances and responsibilities while secret negotiations took place behind closed doors. As the clock ticked toward the U.S. ultimatum deadline, many feared the potential for a catastrophic miscalculation that could drag more countries into the fray. Amid this charged atmosphere, the atmosphere at the United Nations was thick with apprehension. Representatives exchanged glances laced with worry as they listened to updates on missile strikes in the Gulf. The urgency to find common ground intensified, as countries like China and Russia urged restraint, advocating for diplomatic dialogue to ease tensions, while the U.S. maintained a hardline stance, insisting that Iran must concede or face dire consequences. The Council convened emergency sessions, with leaders reiterating their commitment to peace, even as their nations prepared for potential military responses. Meanwhile, on the streets, protesters gathered outside embassies across the globe, demanding an end to the hostilities and expressing solidarity with those caught in the crossfire. Families awaited news in fear, anxiously checking radios and smartphones for updates as reports of humanitarian crises unfolded, revealing the deepening plight of millions trapped in a conflict that seemed increasingly inescapable. As diplomatic efforts unfolded at the United Nations, leaders worked tirelessly to de-escalate the situation, yet the reality on the ground grew increasingly dire. In Iran, citizens faced heightened scrutiny and crackdowns, with the government calling for a national day of solidarity against perceived external threats. In Lebanon, children wandered the streets, eyes hollow and voices silent as the remnants of disrupted lives weighed heavily on their small shoulders.